It was a Tuesday morning in Portland, Oregon, and the rain had only just stopped. A pale light filtered through the blinds of the Dawson family's modest suburban home, casting stripes across the kitchen table where Angela Dawson sat with her laptop and a cooling mug of coffee. Angela was a woman of discipline. 17 years as a bookkeeper had made her meticulous about numbers, routines, and balance sheets. Every Tuesday morning, she checked the family's accounts, especially the savings account she had built carefully for her twin daughter's college education. That account was her pride and her anchor. For nearly 2 decades, she had denied herself vacations, worn the same coats until the seams frayed, and worked overtime every tax season just to put away what she could. While her colleagues talked about weekend getaways or new cars, Angela thought of tuition payments, housing deposits, and student fees. All those sacrifices were condensed into one figure she knew by heart, the amount earmarked for Madison and Olivia's future. She opened the banking app almost absent-mindedly, expecting to see the familiar 7-digit balance that had grown year after year. But instead, the screen refreshed and her breath caught in her throat. The number was 0, not a penny, $0. At first she thought it was a glitch, an app error, maybe a server issue. She refreshed the page once, then again, her fingers trembling harder each time. The zeros didn't move. They stared back at her like a cruel joke, mocking 17 years of sacrifice. Her hand shook so badly that the mug slipped from her grasp and shattered against the tiled floor, sending shards skittering under the cabinets. Coffee spread across the linoleum in dark rivulets. Angela's mind raced. She had scrimped and saved through layoffs, through rising rent, through the lean years when Michael's construction work slowed. All that money, every sacrifice, every denied treat for herself, gone, wiped away in an instant. She fumbled for her phone, her breath coming fast, and dialed Michael's number. Her husband had been a project supervisor at a mid-sized construction company for years. He had access to accounts, yes, but never this one. Not this sacred fund. She pressed call. Straight to voicemail. Tried again. Nothing. "Michael, pick up," she whispered hoarsely into the phone. "This is urgent. Something's wrong with the savings account. All the money, it's gone. Call me back, please." She dropped the phone on the table, staring blankly at the screen of her laptop. Her heart pounded so violently that she felt lightheaded. How was she supposed to tell the girls? Madison dreamed of medical school. Olivia had been working toward a future in computer science since she was 12. Angela had promised them both that money would never be the obstacle she had faced when she was young. And now, in one morning, their future had evaporated. Her thoughts spiraled. Had the bank made an error? Had someone hacked the account? Fraud? Or... Angela swallowed hard. Could Michael have done something? He had always been responsible, maybe a little distant lately, but he couldn't. She pressed the heels of her hands to her eyes, trying to stop the tears before they spilled over. That was when she heard footsteps on the stairs. Madison appeared first, slinging her backpack onto the counter with her usual composed demeanor. At 17, she was already a mirror of her mother. Dark hair tied neatly back, serious brown eyes sharpened with quiet determination. She smiled faintly a normal good morning, as though nothing in the world was wrong. Right behind her came Olivia, nose buried in her phone, earbuds hanging loose. The more restless twin. Olivia always had an energy about her, quick to laugh, quick to frown, fingers tapping as if coding even in her sleep. She set her phone down just long enough to pour a glass of juice, glancing at her mother briefly. Angela must have looked pale. Her hands were still shaking, her eyes swollen with unshed tears, because both girls froze mid-movement and turned to stare. "Mom." Madison asked quietly, picking up on the tension immediately. Angela opened her mouth to speak, but nothing came out. How could she explain? How could she tell them that their dreams, everything they had worked toward, had just been stolen away? The silence stretched, heavy and suffocating, until Olivia slipped out her earbuds and narrowed her eyes. What happened? Angela finally forced the words out, her voice breaking. The account. The college savings account. It's gone. Every dollar. 17 years. All of it. She braced herself for screaming, for tears, for outrage. But instead, something unexpected happened. Madison and Olivia looked at each other. No panic, no confusion. Just a brief, silent exchange, as if they had been waiting for this moment. And then, slowly, their expressions shifted into something Angela couldn't quite read. Not fear, not shock. A faint smile flickered across Olivia's lips. Madison's eyes hardened with an almost unsettling calm. Angela's chest tightened. Why weren't they reacting? Why weren't they terrified like she was? What did they know that she didn't? The air in the kitchen seemed to thicken, heavy with unspoken words. Angela stared at her daughters, trying to decipher the look in their eyes. It was a look that left her with a sudden, chilling thought. Her world was collapsing, and somehow her children weren't surprised. Angela sat frozen at the kitchen table, expecting her daughters to break down in tears, to demand answers she could not give. 17 years of savings gone in a single morning. Surely the weight of that revelation would crush them. Yet Madison and Olivia exchanged a quick glance, and instead of panic, Madison spoke with a calmness that startled her mother. "Don't worry, Mom," she said steadily. "We'll handle it." Angela blinked, certain she had misheard. What do you mean you'll handle it? Do you understand what I just told you?" Olivia rested a hand lightly on Angela's shoulder, as if she were the adult comforting a child. "It's okay. Just trust us. Everything's going to be fine." Her words only deepened Angela's dread. Trust us? How could they be so composed when everything had collapsed? She had expected screaming, accusations, maybe even despair. Instead, they offered reassurance, their voices calm, their faces unreadable. Angela tried to press them for answers, but they only repeated the same words. "Don't worry, trust us, it will all work out." And then they grabbed their backpacks and headed out the door for school, leaving Angela sitting among the shards of her broken coffee mug, staring at the empty balance on her laptop screen. The day that followed was torture. Angela felt as if the walls of the house were closing in on her. She called Michael's phone again and again, 17 times in total, but each call went unanswered, sent straight to voicemail. With every failed attempt, her panic deepened. Finally, she dialed the bank's customer service line, her voice shaking as she explained the missing funds. The representative was polite, patient, but the answer made Angela's blood run cold. The withdrawals had been processed using a power of attorney. Angela froze. Years ago, when Michael had been traveling frequently for work, she had signed a limited authorization so he could handle small account matters in her absence. Pay bills, move modest sums between checking and savings. But this account? This was supposed to be untouchable, safeguarded for their daughter's future. "I'd like to dispute the transactions," Angela insisted. "I understand, ma'am," the representative said carefully. "But from our records, these were authorized under the power of attorney we have on file. It appears the account holder designated your husband with access. Unless there's evidence of fraud or forgery, I'm afraid the transactions are considered valid." Angela's heart pounded in her ears. Fraud, forgery. The words echoed like distant thunder. Could Michael really have taken everything? Her stomach turned as she hung up the phone, pressing her hand to her mouth to stop from being sick. By mid-afternoon, she was pacing the living room like a caged animal, her mind racing in circles. Why weren't the girls more upset? Why had they spoken as though they expected this? Angela felt suddenly like the only one in the house who didn't understand what was happening. The day dragged on, each hour stretching endlessly. She reheated coffee she never drank, refreshed the banking app compulsively even though she knew nothing would change. Zero stared back at her each time, a cruel, unwavering reminder. When the front door finally opened that evening and Madison and Olivia walked in, Angela nearly collapsed with relief. The girls exchanged another one of those wordless glances that had haunted her all day, then set their bags down and sat across from her at the table. Their expressions were serious now, the fleeting smirks of the morning replaced by something heavier, older. "Mom," Madison began softly, "there's something we need to tell you. It's about Dad." Angela felt her throat tighten. She had spent the whole day praying the bank was wrong, that there was some clerical error, some mistake that could be fixed with a phone call. But looking at her daughters now, their grave eyes, their steady posture, she knew what was coming would shatter her far more than a line of zeros on a screen. Olivia opened her laptop, sliding it onto the table. "You deserve the truth. We didn't want to hurt you, but you need to know what we found." The room seemed to shrink around Angela. The hum of the refrigerator, the ticking of the wall clock, every sound felt amplified in the silence. She gripped the edge of the table, bracing herself, as Madison drew a deep breath and continued. "It's about Dad," she repeated, "and what he's been doing behind your back." Angela's heart lurched. In that moment, she understood that the missing money was only the beginning. The true devastation was still to come, and it would cut far deeper than numbers on a bank statement. Madison's voice was steady, but her eyes betrayed a heaviness beyond her years. "It started a few months ago," she began. "I was working on a history paper, and my laptop completely crashed. Dad told me I could use his computer in the office. I thought nothing of it, but when I opened the browser to print, his email was already logged in." Angela felt her stomach tighten. She wanted to stop her daughter, to say that she didn't need to hear the rest, but something inside told her she had to. "At first, I thought I clicked the wrong button," Madison continued, "but his inbox popped up, and there were dozens of unread messages. The first one I saw," she hesitated, glancing at her sister for support. "It wasn't work. It was personal. From Vanessa Carter." Angela's pulse hammered. She knew the name. Vanessa was the young assistant she had seen once or twice at company events, no older than 25, always laughing a little too loudly at Michael's jokes. Angela remembered the way Michael's eyes followed her across the room, though she had forced herself to dismiss it at the time. Olivia leaned forward, her tone sharper, more matter-of-fact. "It wasn't just one message. We found hundreds. 7 months' worth. They weren't just flirting. They were making plans, trips together, a new apartment, even marriage. He told her he couldn't wait to leave and start fresh." Angela pressed her hand to her mouth, while rising in her throat. 7 months. While she had been working late to keep the household afloat, he had been building a second life. "But that's not all," Olivia went on. She pulled up a folder on her laptop, the glow of the screen casting her face in cold light. "I set his email notifications to forward copies. Every time he got a receipt, a transfer confirmation, anything related to the bank, I saved it. Look at this." Angela leaned in, and the numbers blurred before her eyes. Thousands of dollars at a time, transferred out in neat increments. At first, smaller sums, just a few hundred here, 1,000 there. Then larger, bolder withdrawals. All authorized under the power of attorney, all perfectly legal on paper. One email made Angela's hands tremble so violently she almost knocked over her glass. The subject line was simple: funds received. In the body of the message, Michael wrote to Vanessa, "It's done. College savings and reserve funds, everything is ready. Soon we'll be in our new place and Clara will understand. Madison and Olivia will manage without. Our happiness comes first." Angela reeled. He had taken everything, not for bills or debts or emergencies, but to bankroll his new life with another woman. The future of their daughters had been stripped away, parceled out transaction by transaction, until nothing remained. "I thought maybe it was a mistake," Madison whispered. Maybe he was helping her with something work-related. But then the pictures. She clicked to another folder. Angela's breath caught as photo after photo appeared on the screen. Michael and Vanessa at restaurants, in hotel lobbies, his arm slung casually over her shoulder, smiles wide as though they didn't have a family waiting at home. One image showed a rental contract with both of their names on it, another a receipt for a down payment on a condo in Seattle. Angela's vision blurred with tears. "How long have you known?" she asked, her voice raw. 3 months, Olivia admitted quietly. "We didn't want to tell you until we were sure, but we couldn't let him destroy everything without proof." Angela slumped back in her chair, her body numb. It was one thing to fear betrayal. It was another to see it catalogued in black and white, with timestamps and dollar amounts, proof she could not deny. "You have all this," she whispered. "Everything," Olivia said firmly. "Emails, transfers, contracts, even screenshots of their conversations. We've documented it all." Angela looked from one daughter to the other, torn between anguish and awe. They were only 17, yet they had uncovered the kind of evidence even she, with all her years of bookkeeping, might have overlooked. They hadn't panicked. They hadn't collapsed under the weight of the truth. Instead, they had prepared. The betrayal cut deep, but what stunned her most was the composure in her daughter's eyes. They had faced the unimaginable and met it with steel. Angela wanted to scream, to shatter something, to demand answers from Michael right that moment. But all she could do was sit there, shaking, while the truth settled in her bones. The man she had built a life with for 20 years had been living a lie for 7 months, and her children had known before she did. And worse, this was only the beginning of what they had to show her. Angela's hands were still trembling when Madison and Olivia leaned closer, their voices low, as if confessing a crime. But what they described wasn't recklessness, it was calculation. Madison spoke first. "Once we knew something was wrong, we started watching him. Not in a creepy way, but patterns. His habits, his schedule." She described how Michael's evenings had changed. He claimed long shifts at the construction site, paperwork piling up, client dinners. But Madison noticed details. A shirt freshly pressed when he should have been covered in dust, the faint smell of cologne lingering on his jackets. On days he claimed to be working overtime, his truck wasn't parked at the site when she passed by on the way home. "I kept notes," Madison admitted, sliding a spiral-bound notebook across the table. The pages were filled with dates, times, scribbled observations. "Left house 6:30, no work boots." Said he was in Salem, but his truck was near downtown. "Friday, suit jacket, not uniform vest." Each line painted a picture Angela hadn't wanted to see, but now she couldn't deny. Then Olivia took over, her tone sharper, more technical. "I focused on the digital side. I didn't hack anything, Mom. I didn't need to. Dad's careless. He uses the same password for almost everything. Chrome had it saved. His work email, his personal Gmail, all auto-filled." Angela's chest tightened. "I never sent anything," Olivia clarified quickly. "I just copied. Screenshots, PDFs, saved attachments. He printed out bank forms once and left them on the printer tray. I scanned them before he threw them out. And the bank itself? They send confirmation emails for every transfer. He never deleted them." From her backpack, Olivia pulled out a thick folder organized with sticky tabs, bank statements, receipts, emails, photos. She laid it on the table like a case file. Angela stared at it, horrified. "You're just kids. You shouldn't have had to do this." Madison placed a steady hand on her mother's arm. "We didn't want to, but someone had to protect you. Protect us." Angela's eyes filled, torn between gratitude and dread. Olivia clicked her laptop open again and scrolled through images. "And that's how I found something else. Something he doesn't even know. Vanessa, she's not just with Dad. She has another man, a restaurant owner downtown. Rich, older. You can see her tagged in his posts. Expensive dinners, wine tastings. She's with him in public, and with Dad in secret." Angela's breath caught. She's using him?" "Completely," Olivia said flatly. "To her, Dad's just a backup wallet. A plan B. She wants the restaurant guy, but she's milking Dad while she can. Angela pressed her palm to her mouth, reeling. The betrayal was already unbearable. To think her husband wasn't even the center of this affair, but a side investment in another woman's climb. Humiliation burned in her chest like acid. The twins exchanged a look, the kind of silent language siblings share. Olivia leaned back, arms crossed, her face unreadable. Madison sat upright, her jaw tight, eyes dark with resolve. Angela studied them, realization dawning through the fog of her grief. They had worked together, as if conducting a covert operation. One documenting movements in the real world, the other building a digital archive. Evidence stacked upon evidence until the truth was undeniable. 17 years old, and they had done what seasoned investigators might envy. And they had done it for her, for the family Michael had chosen to abandon. Angela's voice cracked. My God, what kind of children do I have? Ones who don't want to see you broken, Madison whispered. Angela turned her gaze to the folder of evidence, the glowing laptop screen, the scrawled notes. The betrayal of her husband cut deeper than she thought possible, but mingled with it was something she hadn't expected. Awe. Her daughters, her girls, still young, still with their lives ahead of them, had seen through lies that Angela herself had missed. They had carried the burden in silence, gathering proof, preparing for this moment. It was horrifying, it was humbling, and it was the only reason she wasn't utterly destroyed right now. Angela pressed her hands together, trying to steady her breath. The storm outside had grown stronger, raindrops streaking the kitchen window, and in that dim light, as thunder rolled faintly in the distance, she realized the truth was no longer buried. It was here, spread out before her, undeniable, and with it came a chilling certainty. This was only the beginning. The folder of evidence sat heavy on the kitchen table, like a weapon waiting to be used. Madison and Olivia leaned forward, their voices low but steady, as if unveiling the blueprint to a mission. We've thought this through, Madison said. It isn't enough to just know the truth. We have to act. If we sit here and do nothing, Dad gets away with it. He builds a new life with her, and we're left with nothing. Angela's heart ached at the hardness in her daughter's tone. You're just 17. This isn't your battle to fight. But Olivia shook her head. It's our future he stole, Mom. That makes it ours, too. And we're not going to let him win. They exchanged a glance. Then Madison whispered the name they had given their plan. Operation Karma. Angela stared, stunned. Her daughters had given their revenge a name. Madison pulled out the notebook again, flipping to a page filled with bullet points and arrows. 3 steps, all timed together. She tapped the paper with her pen, eyes dark with determination. Step 1, she began. We send everything to Dad's company. HR, compliance, whoever handles misconduct. Not about the affair, that's personal, but about how he's used company resources. The gas card, the expense account, even the truck he's supposed to log for site visits. We have receipts that prove he was nowhere near the site on those days. Angela's breath hitched. If the company sees that, they'll suspend him, Olivia finished coldly. At least investigate. At-will employment in Oregon means they don't need much to fire him. We just give them the excuse. Madison flipped to the next page. Step 2. Vanessa. Angela tensed at the name. She's playing both sides, Olivia said. We've collected her pictures with that restaurant owner downtown. The gifts Dad gave her overlap with what she flaunted online. We don't need to do anything extreme. Just make sure he knows she's been lying to him. An anonymous message. Screenshots. Time-stamped receipts. He'll connect the dots. Angela closed her eyes, a wave of humiliation washing over her. To think her husband wasn't even Vanessa's priority, just a side fund. And step 3, Madison said, her voice steady, is where you come in. We've already pulled together everything for a fraud claim with the bank. Dad abused the power of attorney. He went way beyond what he was authorized to do. That makes the transfers disputable. If we go through your lawyer, we can get the accounts frozen. Maybe even have the money returned. Angela's mouth went dry. You already spoke to a lawyer? Not directly, Madison admitted. But Mrs. Jenkins, remember, her son's in my biology class? She's a paralegal at a firm downtown. We asked her what happens when someone abuses POA. She said the bank is required to investigate, especially if there's evidence he forged documents or exceeded his authority. Angela stared at them, torn between horror and awe. Her daughters had been carrying this secret, constructing this plan piece by piece, while she went about her days oblivious. Olivia leaned forward, her tone softening. We're not doing anything illegal, Mom. No hacking, no lies, just giving people the truth. The company, the bank, and Vanessa's sugar daddy. Once they see the evidence, the dominoes will fall. Angela pressed her hands to her face, her shoulders trembling. This is too much for you. You shouldn't have to do this. But we already have, Madison said gently. We've done the work. All that's left is timing it right. Angela lifted her gaze. Timing. Olivia's lips curved into a small, sharp smile. It has to hit him all at once. If we spread it out, he'll wriggle free. But if HR suspends him the same day Vanessa gets exposed and the bank freezes the accounts, he won't have anywhere to run. Angela's chest tightened. She thought of Michael, his temper, his arrogance, the way he dismissed her sacrifices as if they were nothing. She imagined him walking into work to find his career unraveling, checking his phone to find Vanessa gone, opening his account to see it frozen. The image should have frightened her. Instead, for the first time in days, she felt a flicker of relief. Her daughters weren't reckless. They were precise, focused, united. Angela leaned back in her chair, exhaling shakily. Operation Karma, she murmured. What have I raised? Survivors, Madison said. Strategists, Olivia added. The rain outside intensified, drumming against the window panes. It felt like the world itself was echoing the storm building inside their home. Angela's hand still shook, but beneath the fear was something steadier, a glimmer of strength borrowed from her daughters. They had a plan, a terrifying, audacious plan. And tomorrow, Michael Dawson would learn what it felt like when everything he had stolen came crashing down in a single day. The rain was relentless that night in Portland, hammering against the Dawson home as if the sky itself were angry. Angela sat at the kitchen table, her hands folded, her heart pounding in her chest. Madison and Olivia were beside her, calm but alert, waiting. They had set their plan in motion. All that remained was for Michael to walk through the door. When the lock finally turned and the front door slammed open, the sound made Angela flinch, but only for a moment. Michael stormed inside, his face flushed with fury, his jacket dripping rain. He dropped his work bag on the floor, so hard it thudded against the wall. Where is it? He roared, his voice cracking with rage. Where the hell is my money? Angela rose slowly, meeting his eyes across the room. For the first time in years, there was no fear in her gaze. Your money, she said evenly. Or the money you stole from your daughters? Michael froze for half a second before his face contorted. Don't you dare accuse me of theft. I had every right. I had power of attorney, Angela. Every transaction was legal. Madison stood, her expression steady. Legal doesn't mean right, Dad. And you didn't just move money. You drained an account meant for our future. Michael's eyes darted to her, then back to Angela. His voice dropped, almost pleading. You don't understand. I was doing this for us. For me and you, Angela. Vanessa and I. He stopped abruptly, realizing his slip. Angela's breath caught, but her face remained calm. Say her name again, she whispered. Go on. He faltered, then tried to backtrack. No, it's not what you think. She needed help. I was investing for us. For a new life. Olivia opened her laptop on the table with a decisive click. A new life, she repeated coldly. Funny, because according to these emails, that new life didn't include Mom. Or us. Just you and Vanessa Carter. She turned the screen toward him. Michael's face drained of color. On the display was a string of messages, affectionate declarations, promises of apartments, plans for vacations. His own words immortalized in black and white. "That's private," he shouted, his voice breaking. "No, Dad," Madison said firmly. She reached for the folder and pulled out a stack of papers. "This is evidence." She laid down printed bank statements, one after another, like cards in a rigged game. Transfers from Mom's savings account, thousands at a time, all under your name. Michael's hands shook as he shoved the papers aside. "You don't know what you're talking about. Those were legitimate withdrawals." Angela's voice cut through the chaos, low and controlled. "Legitimate? For hotel rooms? For jewelry? 4 down payments on a condo in Seattle with another woman." Michael's jaw clenched, his chest heaving. He looked cornered like a trapped animal. "I had to, Angela. You never understood me. Vanessa, she believes in me." "She," Olivia interrupted, her tone merciless. "She's already gone, Dad. Did you know that? The man she really wants is a restaurant owner downtown, richer than you'll ever be. She's been using you as her backup wallet." Michael staggered back, the color draining from his face completely. "That's not true," he whispered, but the doubt flickered in his eyes. Madison laid down the final blow. A photocopy of the falsified power of attorney he had attempted to pass off. The notary stamp was inconsistent, the dates mismatched. "And this," she said quietly, "is fraud. You didn't just betray us. You broke the law." Michael's knees seemed to buckle. He collapsed into a chair, his head in his hands. The storm outside rattled the windows, thunder rolling low and ominous, but inside the kitchen the silence was deafening. Angela stepped closer, her voice sharp as glass. "You can't go to the police. Do you realize that? The second you try to file a report, you'll be admitting you drained your own children's college fund under false pretenses. They'll open an investigation, and it won't be me they question. It'll be you." Michael looked up, his eyes wild, searching for a lifeline. "Angela, please," he begged. "We can fix this. I made a mistake, but we can still work this out. Don't do this to me." Angela shook her head slowly. "You did this to yourself." The girls stood on either side of her, silent sentinels, their faces set with the same calm determination that had carried them this far. For once, Michael Dawson, the man who had held power over them for so long, looked small, defeated. The rain beat harder against the windows, but inside, the storm had passed. Angela no longer trembled. The fear that had shadowed her for years was gone, replaced by something stronger, certainty. Michael had gambled their lives on a lie, and now he was losing everything. The house was still humming with the echo of Michael's outburst when Angela finally spoke again. Her voice was calm, deliberate, stripped of fear. Madison and Olivia stood close, their presence like unshakable pillars at her side. "You want to fix this?" Angela asked, her gaze steady on her husband. "Then listen carefully. This is the only way forward." Michael lifted his head, his eyes bloodshot, his face pale. He looked less like the confident project supervisor he once was, and more like a man cornered, stripped of his power. Angela didn't blink. "You're going to sign divorce papers. This marriage is over." Michael's mouth fell open, but no words came. Angela pressed on, her tone sharp enough to cut through the storm outside. "You will walk away from every financial claim. The house, the savings, the assets, everything. You will sign them over, leave them to me and the girls. And then you will leave. No phone calls, no visits, no contact. If you try to interfere, every piece of evidence we have, every transfer, every message, every forged document will go public. Your company will see it, The police will see it. The court will see it. Michael lurched to his feet, anger flaring again. You can't do that to me. I built this house. I paid those bills. Madison's voice rang out, steady and cold. You stole from us. That money was for college, not for you to throw away on someone who doesn't even want you. Michael turned toward her, his face contorted, but Olivia stepped forward, laptop still open, a dozen incriminating windows glowing on the screen. One click, Dad, she said evenly. One click, and this goes to HR, the bank, and the district attorney. You think you're trapped now. Try explaining forged legal documents to law enforcement. Angela placed a hand on Olivia's arm, steadying her, then faced Michael again. You have no cards left. The only choice you have is whether you go quietly or whether you drag your name through the mud on your way down. But either way, Michael, you are done here. He shook his head, desperation seeping into his voice. Angela, please. 20 years. Doesn't that mean anything to you? I was stupid, I was reckless, but I can change. Just don't do this. Her eyes burned, but her voice did not waver. 20 years meant everything to me, but you threw them away. And now the girls, and I will not pay the price for your betrayal. The silence that followed was suffocating. Michael's chest rose and fell with ragged breaths as he searched their faces, looking for weakness, for mercy. But Madison and Olivia's expressions mirrored their mother's, unyielding, resolute. Finally, Michael slumped back into the chair, his shoulders collapsing inward. He knew there was no way out. What do you want me to do? His voice was barely audible. Angela straightened, her hands folded in front of her like a verdict being read. Tomorrow morning, you will meet with my attorney. He already has the paperwork prepared. A divorce petition, a financial settlement. You will sign. By the end of the week, this will be filed in court. Michael swallowed hard. And if I refuse? Olivia's finger hovered above her keyboard. Try S. Michael's eyes flicked to the screen, then back to Angela. The fight drained from him all at once. His shoulders sagged, his lips pressed into a thin line. Fine, he muttered. I'll sign. Angela held his gaze, making sure the promise was real. Only when she was certain did she finally exhale. It's over, Michael, she said softly. This family is no longer yours to destroy. Outside, the storm began to fade, the rain tapering off into silence. Inside, Michael Dawson sat broken, while the three women he had underestimated reclaimed the future he had tried to steal. The weeks that followed were a blur of paperwork, appointments, and cautious hope. Portland's skies remained gray, but inside the Dawson home, the air felt lighter than it had in years. Angela carried herself differently now, not with the exhaustion of a woman quietly enduring, but with the steadiness of someone who had survived the storm and was beginning to rebuild. The first letter came from the bank. After reviewing the documents and the falsified power of attorney Michael had used, the fraud department ruled in Angela's favor. Every transfer was reversed. The funds, nearly drained to the last cent, were returned, not to the old joint account, but to a new account created in Angela's name alone. For the first time in weeks, she logged in and saw the balance restored. 17 years of sacrifice had not been lost after all. She printed the confirmation notice and pinned it on the refrigerator, not just as proof of survival, but as a symbol. Her daughters hugged her so tightly that night she nearly wept. It's safe now, she told them. This money will never be touched again except for your future. Michael's downfall arrived just as swiftly. The company's HR department had opened an investigation after receiving the anonymous evidence. Within days, he was called into a meeting with senior managers. At first, he tried to bluster, to deny, but the receipts and mileage logs were irrefutable. Company credit cards, used for dinners and hotels far from any work site. Company time billed while he was photographed elsewhere. By the end of the week, his access badge was disabled. His name was whispered in the hallways, his reputation shredded. The news traveled fast in Portland's construction circles. No one wanted to hire a supervisor caught misusing company resources. Word spread of his pending divorce and the accusations tied to it. The man who once strutted through job sites barking orders now struggled to answer calls from recruiters, calls that never came. And Vanessa? Her glittering facade crumbled just as quickly. The restaurant owner downtown, the one she had flaunted on social media, confronted her with the screenshots and receipts. Dinner reservations she claimed to have paid for were traced back to Michael's stolen funds. Jewelry he thought was exclusive had already been photographed on her wrist weeks before. Humiliated, he cut ties publicly, escorting her out of his life without a backward glance. Her career prospects dimmed overnight. A young assistant with a reputation for entangling herself in scandals wasn't the kind of hire most firms wanted. She lost her position at Michael's company during the investigation and failed to land another. For a woman who thrived on attention and money, the silence of her phone was its own punishment. Meanwhile, Angela and her daughters began to breathe again. The house no longer felt like a battlefield. There were still quiet nights of grief, moments when Angela lay awake replaying 20 years of betrayal, but she wasn't alone in those moments. Madison often studied late at the dining room table, her notebooks spread wide. Olivia coded in her room, the blue glow of her monitor spilling into the hallway. Their presence, steady and unyielding, was Angela's greatest comfort. When the college letters arrived in early spring, they felt like a reward for everything endured. Madison was accepted into a pre-med program with a partial scholarship, her dedication shining through in every line of her application. Olivia received even greater news, a full scholarship for computer science, awarded for her academic record and her independent research project that analyzed online privacy risks. Angela held both acceptance letters in her trembling hands, tears streaming down her face. "This," she whispered, "is what that money was meant for, and nothing, no one, will take it away again." The three of them celebrated with a quiet dinner at a small family-owned restaurant downtown. Not a grand gesture, just good food, laughter, and the relief of finally being free. For the first time in years, Angela allowed herself to imagine a future that wasn't weighed down by secrecy or fear. Michael was gone. Vanessa was forgotten. And though the scars of betrayal would never disappear completely, Angela had something far stronger to hold on to. The resilience of her daughters, the justice they had carved out of lies, and the certainty that they had not only survived but triumphed. Outside, the Portland rain softened into a gentle drizzle, washing the streets clean. Inside, the Dawson family began again. The spring sun finally broke through Portland's clouds one morning, washing the Dawson home in pale gold. Angela stood by the window with a cup of coffee in her hands, watching the light shift across the wet pavement outside. The storm had passed, both outside and in her life. The silence in the house no longer felt heavy. It was peaceful now. Madison's textbooks lay open across the dining table, pages marked with notes and highlighters. Olivia's laptop hummed quietly in her room, a testament to hours of coding and ambition. The two girls filled the house with the steady rhythm of forward motion, of lives already pointed toward the future. Angela thought back to the chaos that had nearly destroyed them. The zeros on her screen, the lies, the betrayal that had threatened to unravel everything she had worked for. For a time, she had believed the only justice that mattered came from judges, courts, or police reports. But in the end, the truth had not been delivered by a gavel. It had been uncovered by two teenage girls who refused to be victims. She marveled at their courage. Madison, with her quiet discipline, who had noticed the smallest cracks in her father's stories. Olivia, bold and relentless, who had pieced together every digital clue. Together, they had done what Angela could not bring herself to face. They had confronted deceit head-on and exposed it for what it was. Justice, Angela realized, did not always roar from a courtroom. Sometimes it was found in whispered conversations between sisters, in the determination of young women who refused to be silenced, in the quiet strength of a mother who finally stopped being afraid. That night, Angela cooked dinner for the three of them. Nothing extravagant, just pasta and fresh bread, but the table was filled with laughter, stories from school, and the kind of warmth that had been absent for far too long. She looked at her daughters, so strong, so unyielding, and felt something deeper than pride. She felt safe. They had survived Michael's betrayal. More than that, they had emerged stronger than before. He had tried to strip them of stability, of dignity, of a future. Instead, he had revealed the depth of their resilience. He had shown Angela the kind of women her daughters were becoming: intelligent, brave, and unafraid of the truth. When the meal was done, Angela leaned back in her chair, her eyes lingering on their faces. "I used to think justice only came from the law," she said softly, "but now I know better. Justice came from you too, from your courage, from your love for me, and for each other." The girls smiled, and Madison reached across the table to squeeze her mother's hand. "We just wanted to protect you," she said. Angela's throat tightened. "And you did. You saved me." In that moment, the house felt whole again. Not perfect, not without scars, but whole. The lies had been stripped away, and what remained was unbreakable. As the evening settled in, Angela allowed herself one last reflection. Life had shown her the cruelty of betrayal, the sharp edge of deception wielded by someone she once trusted above all others. But life had also shown her something stronger: the power of love, of intelligence, of courage in the face of heartbreak. Michael's choices had nearly destroyed them. Vanessa's schemes had humiliated them. Yet neither could stand against the bond of three women determined to reclaim their lives. Angela carried that thought with her as she turned off the kitchen lights and followed her daughters upstairs. Tomorrow would bring exams, college decisions, and the ordinary challenges of life, but she no longer feared them. She had faced something far worse and come out standing. In her heart, she knew the truth. Betrayal might cut deep, but it was love, intellect, and bravery that carved the path forward. And together, those forces could shatter even the most ruthless deception. The storm was behind them. The future was theirs